with Wendy T and Hope Skibitsky.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, and today we are going to be talking about, is the grass really greener? Da-na-na-na. But we need to start by letting you know that there is a lot in this particular topic, so it's a two-parter.
That's right. Mhm.
Yeah.
Good.
So we'll start it today. Don't worry, we won't leave any cliffhangers. But things that we want to dig into deeper, we're going to have a whole other one. It's going to be a part two. So we're getting started by telling you that this is a to be continued.
Mhm. Yep, I can promise you, I've seen my neighbor's lawn, and it's definitely greener.
I don't even have a lawn. So
But I see it from the confines of my house out my window because I don't go outside.
That's right. That's right. Wendy has to take a vitamin D supplement because there will be no earning that vitamin D. That's right.
Lulu's been in and out of the vet, and there was all these questions about potential for fleas, and I'm like, well, we don't go outside. And she was like, but I mean, when you walk your dog outside, and I was like, no, we don't go outside. And so there was this back and forth a few times, and I
I don't think
clarified
she
how.
understood because nobody on the planet, you, brings grass into your house for your dog.
That's right. Mhm.
So the
So.
grass really is greener at your house.
But from what I can see, everybody else's grass seems greener. So.
All
But
right.
this actually stemmed from feedback that we have from our faithful fans who have sent in questions about, what does this look like? What does life look like for other people? And so we thought we would develop this topic about like, is life better by looking at other people's lives, right? So
Yes.
yeah, so we thought we would dive into, what does that look like for somebody else?
That's right. I used to tell people all the time, right, that the grass is only greener on the other side because someone else is over there pooing on it, right? And so it's important for us to realize that every single thing has to be contextualized. But sometimes the thing on your side of the fence really does suck. And sometimes when it sucks, you have the power to do something about it. And sometimes when it sucks, the only power you have is to walk away.
Yeah, so what does that exit strategy look like? Or is there an exit strategy that can be had? And so we thought we would maybe walk through what can be done and what does that new beginning look like? Or is there kind of a long exit strategy and how do you deal for
Right.
that?
So let's talk about that a little bit. Like, what's an idea that sounds like, oh, it looks so much better over there. Somebody else has it good. My first thought is when you look at someone that looks like they have it all together, right? Like you look across the way and you think, wow, that person, they've really got all their stuff in one sock.
Mhm. I
And I,
think the time,
nope, go ahead.
yeah, I think the times where I've kind of had that kind of envy earlier in life, whereas, maybe with certainly with relationships, but also, in the work environment and in, different social clubs, different family situations, different, well, I've definitely seen the narratives when, like just even looking in my family dynamic with the way that my brother and sister-in-law are looking at their two children that they're raising, and so like how one child is compared to how the other child is. And so I mean, it's in every kind of potential relationship, whether it's work, home, whatever it looks like, right? So,
Yeah.
which one do you want to dive into first?
Well, I mean, I think let's talk about the fact that sometimes we see the grass is greener both personally and or professionally than what it is that we have, right? Like I have on more than one occasion said to myself or someone else, well, I'm not the smartest person, but I work really hard. And someone else might look at me and be like, man, you must have it all together. Like you must just be so smart. And I'm thinking, me? But what someone else sees, their perception is their reality, right? And so I know on more than one occasion, I know we've talked in the past about imposter syndrome. I have felt inferior around other people simply because they come across as knowing a thing I don't know. And I think, man, I wish I had had the chance to, you know, be smart enough to feel like I could go to college. But then at the same time, like I wouldn't have had the life I had. I wouldn't be where I am today had I not joined the military because I felt like I had no other options.
It's so interesting. Somebody just called me last week because there was a promotion ceremony and the stripes on the uniform were fresh out of the dry cleaners and they were feeling a little like maybe I'm not ready and maybe this isn't right and maybe I don't deserve this. And so there I am on my, my venue of choice is always FaceTime, right? And so I was like, you're right, you don't deserve that because you really deserve 4 stars on your shoulders. So don't get it twisted for 1 second that, this isn't, right for you because you're going to be the only person in the room and somebody in there thinks that you don't deserve it because you don't have 4 stars on your shoulders. So speak up
Yeah.
and be proud of where you are because you've earned every ounce of that, and you deserve more.
Well, and it's really easy to sow the seed of doubt, right? Like, especially if I'm doing something that sounds like self-deprecation and I throw something in the room, there is a chance that I could take someone from a very confident feeling about me, my capability, and have them now wonder, like, is she as capable as I think she is? Because I planted the seed. And so, I mean, sometimes just keeping everything together, putting on the strong face, showing up with a confident attitude will inspire that confidence in somebody else. It also does a lot for your own like behavior. But
You're right.
I
And what happens when that environment becomes the environment where there's a handful of people who are starting to pull it down, right? And I mean, I had the great fortune of having a wonderful career where I had a lot of positive influences, but I do recall one leadership team that it didn't exist like that. And it was very difficult for me. And I didn't manage that well because I let those cracks seep in and started to think like maybe there's something wrong with me. And and it was just one leadership team in the whole career,
yeah, yeah.
So that's pretty disappointing for my own self-worth. And so, I think about people who have had long careers and had to struggle a couple of times because I feel like that's an anomaly to just only have one difficult leadership team, And so
Well,
I feel pretty fortunate that what do you do then?
let's pick that scab or pull at that thread, right? Like, let's talk about leadership teams because I used to tell people all the time that a person in my position, in the half of the team that was leading a thing, my side was only ever as powerful as was supported by my leader, my immediate boss.
Right.
Because if I wasn't given the autonomy to speak on their behalf because I knew exactly the direction they wanted us to go. So I had their intent. I already knew what their vision was. If they didn't then give me the freedom and the support to go execute, I'd have been nothing more than a mother may I. And sometimes that can feel really inhibiting and that can make you feel like you always have to ask for permission instead of demonstrate your own confidence or capability. And it can sometimes then make you feel like I am struggling with feeling appropriately led instead of micromanaged, trusted, abandoned, some of those things, which if you ask 100 people, you'll get 100 different definitions of toxicity. But I would define toxicity as an environment like I just described.
Yeah, no, I'm not able to thrive.
Right.
Mhm.
I'm all about, trust but verify. But trust but verify is, hey, check-ins, executive summaries, give me the decision-making power over things that you don't have the power to decide, but everything else, like just do.
Mhm.
Um, but sometimes you are really hamstrung by someone, be it their insecurity, their past experiences, their ego. can be really limiting in how far you feel you're capable of going, which often will make us look over the fence at somebody else and be like, man,
Yeah.
it's just got to be better.
It's so smooth over there. You know?
Yes.
Right. So I have a friend, Amy, who kind of walked through a scenario like this where uh, it was awkward beginning with a team. And so she addressed it by just, having a conversation of what do you need? How does this work for us? Because I've observed this and I've responded this way. It sounds like that's not working for us. So how do we work through this?
Mhm.
And I will say to that leader's credit, they took pause and said, it must really suck that you have to adjust who you are every time you get a new boss. And I thought that was a really interesting observation because
Very
it's
emotionally intelligent answer. Yeah.
so, that's given the nature of our work, that's just how it works out. And
Yeah.
so, they were able to lead together through that. And I was like, wow, that's pretty interesting observation. And that's what we do.
Yeah. I mean, but it takes a very self-assured, humble, vulnerable boss to say, hey, look, I realize that you're probably dealing with a few things because you've had some instances or experiences that, can be really impacting on your confidence. And say, look, I'm going to try really hard to assure you and then work to show you that I'm not that person.
In this particular case, it's because the previous people had wanted certain things done a certain way and this and that, whatever. And this particular leader wanted it, was like, I don't want that to, like, no, can you just decide and move on? And it was like, why are you giving me all these different things? Right. And so the Amy was like, look, I'm very capable of this, right? But I just have, this was the battle with them before. So what do you want?
That's right.
I was super impressed with how that rolled out. And so my observation from that was, just like kind of that direct conversation of what do you need to be set up for success for us to be set up for success here? And it doesn't seem like it's working well right now. And so, like that, no lying, no hiding, no faking, as CD and I like to say, just to put it all out there, because if I want a we to be successful, then I want to be invested in the solution together. How do we move forward through it? And sometimes that works well and sometimes it doesn't. When the other person isn't interested in that team moving forward together, they will let you know. And so,
Yeah. I mean, that's a big part of it, right? Like both sides have to be willing to both listen and speak. Right.
right.
And so if one side of the team is like, I do the speaking around here, that makes it very hard. And it's it's interesting how many people make the assumption, though, that the other person wouldn't hear them. Maybe because they are a bit abrupt, or they're a little pointed, or um, because let's say I had a boss that didn't give me an opportunity to have healthy banter or be candid in private conversation with them, then I might feel more hesitant with my next boss to be as open, candid, vulnerable as maybe I had been before that experience. And so now I might say things like, well, they're just never going to listen, or they won't hear me, or I already know how this is going to go. And so then rather than actually attempt to broach the subject, they make their assumptions and
Mhm.
never broach the subject and they suffer in silence.
That's right. And so you make the red flags in your head instead of just leading them in the parade.
Yep, yep. Yeah, funny. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. 100%. And so, I mean, if we talk about that a little bit, like what happens if I broach the subject with a boss and I say, "Hey, can I talk to you for a minute?" And they're like, "I'm busy. Can you not say I'm busy?" And I like, "Okay, is there a time that I can get on your calendar where we can actually have a conversation?" And they're like, "You have my calendar, go do it." So you get on their calendar and then you sit with them and they're like, "What is it that you need?" And I'm like, "I just need to be able to talk to you about how I feel our interactions are and how it's maybe hindering my ability to be as open with you." And they're like, So you want me to hold your hand and what, what, what? And so then like you feel yourself withdraw and you're like, I don't even know what to say.
I will send out the etch a sketches to all of our listeners who need that because, I have shaken this on more than one occasion.
I used to say as well, like you can shake them like a yoo-hoo, right?
Yeah.
Like just got to be really vigorous with it. So what happens though, like when you approach a boss, because you're trying to be that person that wants to talk about it, you don't just want to make the assumption and you get brutally rebuffed.
Right. I don't have a good solution for that because I feel like you've made the effort. I've made the effort in this situation and it's not improving. And
Yeah.
so I feel like what does plan B look like? Because I kicked the shit out of plan A and this is falling apart and I'm not any happier now. And the
Yeah.
grass is definitely looking better over in the neighbor's lawn.
Yeah.
And so, what is that, you know, how do I move on? And
Well,
is that
people
an option?
say all the time that in civilian sector, it's easy, just leave. It's not always easy to just leave because some of us in the civilian sector, I have bills to pay. I can't be without a job or, I have this job allows me to not work on Fridays. I'm making all of this up. And Fridays is the day I have pick a schooling class or who knows whatever. And so maybe leaving isn't an option. So then what?
So do I eat the same lunch every day because it's safe or do I, try the vegan diet?
I have a suggestion. So, so what I would recommend if I were just, throwing things into the hinterland is so years and years and years ago when I first went through the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey, there was a video that you had to watch about a nurse that was a full-time caregiver for a gentleman who was just, for lack of better terms, just crotchety old bugger, right? Like he was just mean and mad. And she would be as kind as she could, and he was as mean and mad as he could ever be. And she was kind again, and he was mean and mad. And eventually, he was less mean and mad. She had to be strong enough, have the intestinal fortitude enough to just keep coming back to the well. And in the video, it's like everybody thinks, oh, nobody really does that. I'm going to use a scenario that I don't know everyone will understand, but I think oftentimes about animals, right? Like if there's an animal that has been neglected or abused or mistreated or abandoned, and then someone else comes and tries to help that animal, they snap and they snarl and they're ugly and they're awful. And one person might say, euthanize that thing, like, man, we ain't got time for that. And the next person is like, no, 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 I'll work with them. And I can't tell you how many times when I'm like, cannot sleep and doing all the wrong things for sleep hygiene and surfing through my phone, watching every YouTube video that makes you cry, that there's somebody that sits in the floor of the shelter just waiting for this animal to accept a piece of jerky or something that they put down, and then they work with him and then they work with him, and then the end of the video there's this dog with a wagging tail that feels the love it's never felt, right? We as humans seem to be way more willing to work with animals that have dealt with those traumatic instances and then just make assumptions about humans. And part of it is people, love to say, well, humans get to make decisions. How to make a decision, when to make a decision, being emotionally intelligent enough to make the right decision, how to break the cycle isn't always apparent to people. So, long way around my back to touch my elbow, I will just say, perhaps we could try going back to the well with kindness, that old adage, right? Like kill them with kindness. So maybe like just try to keep going back and see if you're the first person that breaks through the armor that they've built out of their own insecurity.
I mean, I feel like I have a pretty high bar for that, but then when I get there, I'm like, we're done.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And trust and believe if you called and said, Hope, bring a shovel, I'm not even asking why, right? Like, got you.
But you're right. I think I want to be the person that gives somebody a chance to, even if the other teams, other people, other supervisors feel like this person has been written off, then I still want to give my chance of trying to resurrect this situation and approach the situation differently. This is one of the reasons why I love education in general, whether or not it's actual school kind of education or just learning in general, is I feel like it's such an equalizer to give people opportunity. And I've seen people who have hated school, and I want people to love learning.
Don't talk about me like I'm not right here.
I know, but because I want people to love learning because it does give chances. And I've seen how it can change somebody's life. And I've just seen how you can love learning if you find the right topic, if you find the right approach, you find the right way to like stick the landing on that. And so I think the same thing about people. Like I want to find a way to reach somebody. It just, I also think the other side has to meet you at some place. Like I will reach really far, but there's a limit.
No, that's fair. And I think every person has to make their own decision on how much they are willing to tolerate. Some people, one bad incident, and this is where that, saying that, first impressions are lasting impressions. Some people are like, oh, nope, one time bad experience. I will never trust you. I will never talk to you, like that kind of thing. Other people will give 999 chances to the point that they then give the appearance of a wet doormat because they've just allowed people to walk on them and walk on them and walk on them to the point that it seems as though they have no self-confidence to stand up for themselves. But I believe that there's a medium in there where maybe you give someone a chance, you tell them what you didn't appreciate, they rebuff you, but you give them a chance. Um, but everyone has to decide for themselves when they just, decide that that relationship isn't worth it. So what happens then?
That's why, yeah, I really want to know. Like, okay, so if we've gotten to that point where, like, okay, the conversation's been had, and this situation from my work environment is not awesome, and I don't see that light at the end of the tunnel, but I still have to, I mean, look, Lulu has a pampered life, and so that, her bougie food is not going to pay for itself. So how do we afford that same sustainable lifestyle? Uh, that requires me staying in this miserable working relationship. I don't know, so what does that exit strategy look like? Do I make a plan for the future? Do I play the lottery?
Yeah. And I mean, bosses need to hear that too, right? Because bosses, I think it was Paul Hurt's group that did a study and demonstrated that like 65% of people that leave their job didn't leave because they didn't like their job. They left because they didn't like their boss.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, I think bosses have to go a long way into understanding what they do to their company attrition rates and how expensive it is to recruit and hire and train. And that, just having a room for someone to come and have a conversation with you, like you can take the constructive criticism, you can hear what they have to say, but retorting with, well, here, I'm sorry, your feelings are so soft, right? Like that's probably not helpful. But just give somebody an opportunity to talk, give them a place where they feel valued, right? So if we're talking to the other side of the coin, hey, I'm the jerk face boss, or I don't know that I'm a jerk face, but I'm being perceived as a jerk face boss. If someone comes and approaches you, this is your opportunity to do some self-reflection and then see what you might can do about it.
Yeah, or if I'm that boss, I can kind of like it's my chance to then say, this is why the standard is where it is. I can remember when this is like 8,000 years ago when I was graduating nuclear power school, I had a roommate who failed the comprehensive exam. And I was so sad for her because you spend all that time, going through the program, and one test means you don't get to graduate.
Mhm.
And I remember talking with the senior chief and saying, if she just had more time, she would be able to finish, she would be able to graduate. And I was so frustrated by this. And he was trying to explain to me, if she needs more time, she won't make it in the fleet in this job. And so he was trying to like, that was his way of explaining to me that the process is set up like this for a reason. And so I didn't understand it from my picture, my, understanding of the Navy at that time. But he did his best to explain it to me in a way that I would be able to like live with that decision because I was struggling so much at the time where I'm like, if she just, had a little more time, she would graduate. And he was like looking at the big picture view that I just couldn't see when I was in the moment.
Yeah, one of the reasons why communication is so important. The book that I read like forever ago, The Lost Art of Listening, it gives a lot of really important tools, but the biggest one is that both parties have to be willing to listen, and both parties have to make sure that they understand what the other party was trying to convey. And so, like, you're saying, hey, from the boss's perspective, here's the reason why there's a hard line in the sand. But there also needs to be a conversation on the other side that just simply says, hey, have I told you that you need to find a way to speed up, or maybe you're just not cut out for this, and it's not because you're bad or you suck or that I don't like you. You might fit better somewhere else.
Right.
I think that that could go a really long way with someone feeling valued in the work section, just maybe not there.
Yeah, she went on to have a remarkable career as an officer in the Navy and recently retired. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, fantastic, fantastic sailor. I
Yeah.
feel like we have so many things that we can like pick apart. This may end up being like multiple episodes about like how do we start over? What does that new beginning look like? How do we make new friends? How do we build those relationships? What does that new career path maybe look like? There's like many areas to like get in the deep end on for this.
Yeah. I mean, I look at you all the time because, I told you I struggled leaving the Air Force. It was hard for me because I loved the Air Force as my family, not just as a career, not just as a job, but like my family. And so I see you all the time, still very well connected, interacting, going to all of these things. And, I try really hard to, if a friend comes into town, connect, if we have an opportunity to do something, if, the military's like, hey, will you? I'm like, yes, please. Like I try really hard to do those things, but I do still have like career, family, just other obligations that sometimes I don't get to do them. And I think, man, how does she do it? How does she get it all in? How does she go all the places? How does she see all the faces? And so I do sometimes have a little bit of that, like, oh, it would be so much better if I just, could climb into Wendy's skin and do the thing Wendy does, right? And so you think like, how
We
is
could,
it so
we
much
could fit
better?
we could fit two of you in my jeans for sure.
Though I'll tell you, those jeans with pockets on the back, I would figure that out. I love those jeans. Yeah. So we have a lot to talk about, looking at the other side and trying to see, I want to dig into some of this toxicity. We've talked about like why some people feel this side is not as green. And we've talked a little bit about why it, might not be an option to go, but I think we could explore that a little bit more. Yeah, I'm excited. I feel like we have a whole lot
Yeah.
to talk about on this.
There's so many lessons learned in that. I remember William Jones had an opportunity and then was almost ready to take it. Like he accepted it, and then something happened. It was unrelated to him, but something happened to somebody else that he was close to. And he was so disappointed with leadership decisions that led to that, like his observation of how that happened. He decided he didn't want to be a part of the company anymore. And so he walked away, and he could walk away because he was financially stable enough to walk away. And it was such a life lesson to me to live your life in a way that you have choices to do that.
Yeah,
And
YOLO, right? If you only have so many days on this planet, what's that book? 4,000 Weeks. If you only have so many days on this planet, where you spend your time matters. What are you doing and how is it impacting you, your family, your career, your choices? Like where you spend your time matters. And sometimes you are tangled into a thing you just absolutely cannot get out of. And I want us to explore, what do you do then? But we'll do that next time. I lied. I left this in a cliffhanger. We just don't have the time to get
I
in.
know we don't. But this is a great, like a way for us to remind listeners too to send in your questions or what you want to know for the follow on, and that way we can make sure that we capture it. So because, like I said, this topic was derived straight from the inbox. So let us know how we answer the call. Okay.
Absolutely. And speaking of inbox, Please know you can always go out and find all of our episodes on orangegumpodcast.com. You can send us an email at orangegumpodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Instagram. You can check out this video on YouTube. You can listen wherever you listen. We ask you, tell us what you think. Let us know if we're on the right track. I don't know, just spend a little bit of time with us. We enjoy it. Okay. So until next time, take care, y'all.